Well, hello, friends. Welcome to the From Busy to Rich podcast. This podcast is designed to help advisors like you increase your profitability and the quality of your life. We are right in the heart of a series called Practically Pretty, 10 Truths to Make Your Business Beautiful. I was thinking about this just the other day, Justin and Wes, as I was watching some sports highlight, and these are grown men. They are working, they're sweating, and it said those guys made a play. They flipped the glove and said it was a beautiful play, right? Such a pretty play. And I thought that reminds me of the series we're in. And today we're going to talk about not sports. We're going to talk about playing music or making noise. So we'll make that connection a little bit. Wes got a great story to illustrate that truth. Great to see you today. How are you, my friend?
Doing absolutely wonderful. Excited about our content today, Andy.
I am as well. Folks, if you're listening right now and you are just heavy in guilt because you haven't left a review, I'm going to say that at the start of the podcast episode. On Spotify, you can leave a number of stars. I don't think you can write reviews on Spotify yet, but they're always changing. So if you can, leave one there. Apple iTunes, you definitely can. And we also just love your feedback. So you can reach out to us that way as well. But Wes, set this up for us. We're going to talk about, again, this idea of how to make, your business practically pretty. Practical being, some really changeable things you can do. I like to say make it matter on Monday. And pretty is just, what are those things that other people sort of, they have these results that are so enviable and you want to have them. And so we're going to talk about how to achieve some of those today.
Yeah, you bet. The practical part is so big because I think all of us, we in life have observed people like you said that made that beautiful play or are living an aspect of their life really, really well that we admire. Yeah. And we say, man, if I could do that would be awesome. I'd love to aspire to that. And certainly in the business world, there's many people that we observe. In our business, in the financial business, we've got 20 years of auditing, thousands of advisory practices that are really elite, that are doing it at another level that I don't care who you are. If you see their practice, you're going, that one's pretty. I mean, the way they're doing it is good. And what's fun in our position is we get the opportunity to kind of peel back the layers and actually observe what are they actually doing? Like, what are the things that are creating that great smelling practice? That what are they putting in the cake batter in order to make it come out the other side just wonderful and just delicious? And so we discovered there's like at least 10 things. And there may be more, and you can certainly subdivide these as much as you want. But for sure, these 10 are like common denominators. They're universal. When we see somebody that's got what we would define as an elite practically pretty practice, it's like these things exist in there. So we've been unpacking them together. And I think as we have dove into each one, the thing we always like to hammer on in our podcast, it's like the theme of our entire podcast, certainly because of the name, the theme of this series, Practically Pretty, is the practical part. Because as you know, Andy, I mean, you have a front row view to a bunch of advisor practices and all the things you do with Elite Advisor Network, and all the things you get to observe and the stuff that we're doing. And what would you say is it information really the issue a lot of times?
Well, let me share an analogy, which is that, my wife and I used to go to, a marriage counselor very, very often. And our frustration with it and why we stopped doing that. And if you want to keep doing that, people do that. That's great. But we actually have a couple that we meet with, another married couple. And the difference is before we'd sort of just talk about stuff and we felt heard. But I was like, I need instructions. Like I am in the middle of something and there is a problem and I need very, very clear instructions. And I don't just need to be heard, right? I need to know what to do. And not just be told you can do it and it's going to be okay. And, whatever, like we're fighting, like I need to be told what to do. And I think that's where we're at. Like, yes, inspire us, make us laugh, make us think, but also tell me what to do. Right. So that's right. Very heavy into that because the bottom line is, and listen, I know there's people listening right now that you can go through an entire day and look back and you're driving home and you go, what did I do today? Like I know I was at work, but what did I get done today? And we want you to feel like you get stuff done. And we're going to talk very, very practically about that today.
Awesome.
So let's talk about how, again, we don't need more information, right? Necessarily, we need to have application. And so today we're going to talk about the only information we're going to share is on things you can apply, right?
That's right.
That's our clarification, right? We want you to be more engaged than just entertained. Okay. There's a place for entertainment. That's fine. Go see that movie, right? But we want to really, really dive in and get practical. So, Wes, flesh out for us this clever title, about, playing music or making noise.
Yeah. So I got a little story. If anybody that's listening, I'm in Austin, Texas. And so, we have something called Austin City Limits Festival. It's like famous music festival every year. It's in October. You'll have very, very famous bands, that are some of the best in the world at whatever music they sing. And it's all kinds of music. So if you like a diversity, that's there for you. I've been personally and enjoyed it. My kids are going this year, so I'm nervous because I've been, and I know what these are like. So here's the thing is I was thinking about this particular topic about playing music or making noise. And these are the best musicians in the world, Andy. And so we were at one stage, and their stages they're playing all at the same time, but the stages are far enough apart where we were in front of like the John Party stage, and we were listening, and he was great. If you like country music and his brand of it, that he's really, really good. We're listening to it. And then we knew that as he was ending his show soon, way across this whole thing, on the other side was going to be the Black Pumas.
Are there are there like hills? I mean, are they directionally different? Like, how do you navigate this?
Yeah. So if you could imagine about 4 football fields, but, and they grade up in the middle, each stage at the valleys at the end.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we're walking up, John Party's still playing, and we're getting to the top of the peak of the little hill, gradually. And all of a sudden, as we walk about 20 feet, as we're cresting this hill, we knew that John Party was still playing, and we knew that the Black Pumas were playing because we could see them at this point. But it didn't sound like either one. What it sounded like was like noise, and it wasn't good because you're hearing both. And I think the deal is here, and as I think about this, is you can have the best musicians in the world, because these are 2 of the best musicians in the world, albeit different.
No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. But when they're playing different songs at different rhythms, at different tones, at different times, it just sounds like noise. It really does.
It is. Yeah.
And so the analogy I use with that is this topic, when it relates to advisory practices, is you can have the most talented team in the world.
Yeah.
And if you don't have some of the right structures in place, if you aren't playing the same music and the same rhythm at the same time, the same speed, it just sounds like noise. And now, sure, occasionally you may have to replace a band member, if you will, because maybe they just not meeting the demand of what you're doing now.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, a lot of times that's not it. I mean, my observation, and I'd be curious to see your thoughts on this, Andy, is because I have, over my 20 years in this business, observed thousands, if not, thousands and thousands of advisory practices at a deep level, because I'm a student of the human condition.
Right.
And I will tell you, more often than not, it's yes, sometimes it's let's get a new band member, or let's replace a band member.
Right.
More often than not, people who have already hired someone or someone's, it's just that they aren't playing the same song at the same time. They're making noise because they're missing some of these critical components that we're going to talk about today that keep them singing the same song at the same time on the same rhythm.
Yeah. I think that it's safe to say that most of the time it's a leadership issue. It's not a follower issue, right? There are times when, you're like, I feel like I'm leading this person well, and they just don't want to play our song.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Or they just can't keep up with the beat. That's another one. I think
they keep going solo, doing solos.
Yeah. Or they're just offbeat, meaning like you just can't keep up. And that's, we have a standard here, and, we're on this beat, not on that beat. And that's not going to work.
That's right.
You can't play your own rhythm when we're, supposed to be playing the same thing. But But yeah, I would say most of the time, yeah, you're right. It's something that you can adjust from a leadership level, and it's just getting people literally on the same page. I also think about, as a coach, and I also think about this from a music perspective and also from a business perspective, you don't think a position maybe is that important until like they have the ball, or that, it's like so it's like, is the drummer that important? Like, well, if they're off, they are.
That's right.
Are they as important as the lead singer? No, until they're off, and then it throws everybody off, right? Right. And so it's what's the most important part of the space shuttle? Like all of them.
Yeah.
Because if any of them break up, it causes catastrophic damage, right? So I think we want to make sure that the overall tone, pun not intended, but I'll take it, tone of today's show is that you have to have people playing together. And knows that not everyone can be. I have two friends that are actually in Carrie Underwood's band, right? They're very clear about who everyone came to watch. And it's not Chad or Ed, my friends, right? And they've known that for a long time. Nobody's watching Chad and Ed, but do they play an important role? Absolutely, right? So, and part of that is their job is to stay in sync. Yeah. So what are some things that people can do to make sure that they're playing the same song, maybe different instruments, different skills, right? But what are the things that we can do on a practical level to make sure that we're playing the same song, we're making good music?
Yeah. So we've got a handful of them here that I think are great. I want to talk about the first one is you got to have a set list. So when Chad and Ed are getting ready to step on stage with Carrie,
yeah,
they already know,
absolutely,
at least initially, the flow of the songs that they're going to sing.
100%. Yep.
And Carrie can throw them a loop. She could say, actually, we're going to audible and I'm going to throw this song in, and they can do it.
Yeah.
But 90% of the time they got a set list and they're sticking to it. And what I love about this is it so translates over to advisory world. So every single Monday, Andy, what we do as a planning team, so me and Justin and Cody, Stephanie, Preston, all of us who are on our planning team, we're looking at the next 2 weeks of meetings, and we're thinking about, one, what kind of meeting it is, because we kind of have a set list for certain kinds of meetings that we know we are going to cover. At least, I mean, they can go a lot of different places, but we kind of know the rhythm of those meetings.
Sure.
And then the other thing we do is we've got what we call a narratives checklist, and a narratives checklist is fantastic. It's basically, think of it as a list of songs. And for us, it's a list of strategies, tactics that we can communicate that may be valuable in a given situation. Now, there's hundreds of bullets on this narratives checklist, just like there can be hundreds of songs we're capable of singing together. Mm-hmm. But when we're looking at this unique client, we're talking about the type of show it is, right? The type of engagement it is. All of us are looking at that checklist and saying, what would be great here? What would be valuable in this particular client situation? And whether it's a brand new or whether it's been there a long time, you got to talk about this. Like, talk about the normal stuff. You all have your hit songs that you're going to sing every time that it goes without saying, but man, you should bring up this idea. So maybe they have 3 kids that are under the age of 18 and they have a business. Right. They should pay their kids. We should at least sing that song to them. We should talk about it with them.
Yeah.
So there's things like that.
Yeah. It's like not playing Sweet Home Alabama when you're in Alabama. I mean, you got to sing the song, right? You got to bring that up, right?
Right.
Or when I went to go see Tom Petty in high school, there's a song that says Indiana Girls on Those Indiana Nights. And it was in Indianapolis, Indiana. And you better believe that we were all singing every word to that song because it applied to them, right? So it's knowing, the set list is, sort of like historically it's sort of written with Sharpie and it's set at their feet, yada, yada, but it's what they're prepared to use, right? It's their playbook, if you will, from a musical standpoint. So everybody knows here's what's coming next and they're prepared for it accordingly. I love that analogy.
Yeah. And you know what's great, Andy, too, and we've done other podcasts on this, or you can even go to the wesyounglive.com website and look at modules on this. You can watch the big parts of every one of our kinds of meetings and you can learn from that set list as to what may fit in some of these. We've always got an opener, which we call a welcome. We've always got common ground. and we've always got healthy tension. We've always got next steps. What goes into each of those is different depending on where they're at in the process and depending on the kind of client it is. And so I feel like the inverse of this is that most of the time when we observe like advisor practices, there is no set list. They say, well, I just have a bunch of ideas that live in my head. And one, your brain is amazing. It can do a lot of things,
Right.
but we can use it incredibly inefficiently. Like my iPhone, it can do so many things and I don't fully use it to its full capability. I know that.
Right.
Just like I don't think most people, if you're using your brain to store your set lists, one, you're just not going to recall everything. I mean, and you're going to work real hard to try and get there versus put that set list on paper and say, this is going to help me play beautiful music instead of me going, what's the next song? What should we be singing here?
Well, and your mental energy, we know this to be true, right? Like the mental energy to be recalling leaves no room for improvisation.
Yes.
Or listening. Right? And so you only have so much mental energy to be working with. So don't use it on stuff that doesn't matter. Right?
Absolutely.
What I love the set list. So know what you're going to talk about going into it. Here's the other thing. You don't have to stick to the set list, meaning you could leave something out, add something in, but give yourself it's like they say, where they start off with a lot of football games. They know their first 5 plays or 8 plays they're going to run. Like, let's do that. Or you get inside the 20-yard line or the 5-yard line. Like, we're going to run these 3 plays. Go. Right.
That's right. Yeah. So, you can be creative because you've done the prep work and you're ready to go and then realize, in this one case, I'm calling an audible, right? I'm scrapping that play and I'm going a different direction.
Another thing you use, and we'll just touch on it real quickly though, is an ideal calendar. It's really fascinating when you ask someone like, what's your ideal day look like? And they're like, huh?
That's right.
You can have those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, frequently, and I challenge our team on this all the time, because we do a bunch of exercises that like basically tells me where are you at, right now as your level of enjoyment.
Right. Yeah. Ouch.
And a lot of times it's like, I feel heavy. And so I back into that and I say, well, wait a minute, what would an ideal week look like for you to feel light? Like, what would you be doing? Tell me how Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at work look like in order for you to go, that's a great day.
Yeah.
And so what we do as a team is, one, it comes out of our process, but we back into, okay, for us to do this well, for us to help people increase their profitability and quality of life.
Yeah.
What are the things that have to be done? We got to prepare for meetings. We have to have meetings and we have to handle projects that result from those meetings. And so we kind of build a calendar around that where we've got Monday's our prep day. And so we're preparing for those next 2 weeks of meetings coming up. And then every day, except for Friday, we have what we call a headline meeting where for 15 minutes, everybody, usually at 9:00, call in or Zoom in. And we say, okay, here's what I need from you. Here's what you need from me. And we go around and get our questions answered because otherwise, you know what noise is when I'm trying to play a song and somebody keeps saying, hey, Wes, stop for a second.
Yeah.
Can you answer this question for me? And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Well, now I'm out of flow, right? So there are very few things, Andy, that cannot wait till 9:00 the next morning to get answered. And again, our team has full permission. If it's an emergency or you just need it right now, pick up the bat phone. We call it. That's under emergency only. But if that's the rule, not the exception, your practice is noisy, and I guarantee you, the one thing that slips all the time. So if everybody listening, if you just do one thing different, have a daily headline meeting where your entire team calls in, and you go around and say, I need this question answered from you. Can you answer this question for me? Here's a new thing I need you to work on.
Right.
But you're not blowing up everybody's day because that's a noisy practice.
Yeah. And frankly, it's, hey, this is, what do they say? Your emergency is not I don't know. There's some phrase. Oh, your lack of preparation does not constitute an emergency for me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I'm in really bad shape. I heard the word you in that sentence, not me. Right. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I'm unprepared. I heard and not talking about me, talking about you. Right. So ideal calendar, set list. Well, give me a couple more.
Yeah. So the other one I would say, this is big, and we might end on this one because it's big, is strategy sessions, right? So we call every meeting, we have a strategy session, but here's how we do our strategy sessions. Here's how we cadence them is we have two. So once a client is already in our rhythm, and you can go back and watch other podcasts or go buy some modules on there, or take our transform class to learn how we do what we do. But let's assume somebody's already in our annual planning rhythm. We're charging them an annual retainer fee.
Okay.
But what happens is every year they already know, because we pre-schedule it mid-year. Usually it's about 3 months, somewhere surrounding mid-year, leading up to it. They're already on the calendar. They know that's coming.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not chasing them down. I just send it to them. Here's when yours is. Tell me if you need to move it. And you'd be surprised that people tend to go, oh, okay. Kind of like if you have a dentist appointment,
Sure.
6 months out. You just go, and when they notify you it's coming up, if you need to move it, you move it. Not a big deal.
Right.
So you're not blowing up your administrative burden on chasing people as much as that's possible. And then year end, we have another one year end. So mid-year is where we're kind of doing that big picture. You might refer to it as an annual review if you're not using a strategy session. Here's where you are. Here's where you've come from. Here's the strategy summary that you've been getting every month and the things that are outstanding. Let's just tune into a couple areas of opportunity that we need to clean up while we're together.
Okay.
And it's wonderful. It's good. They know it's coming. They feel loved. They're also getting contacted every month with the strategy summary, which we talked about. And then year end generally has to do solely with like what has happened throughout the year that may cause us to need to pull some levers that are time sensitive, that are annual calendar sensitive. And so it's great for us because then that frees up a bunch of other time for us to do other things throughout the year. Now we're still having client meetings and you have one-offs.
Yeah.
But it's like seasons of the year, Andy. It's like you have, summer, spring, winter, fall, and not in the door, but you have those things. And, and if you ever, because if it's the same season all year long, unless it's Hawaii, okay, maybe that's the one exception, but for most places of the world, same season all year long, that's noisy. It doesn't even feel good. You think about it this way. Some of the longest, some people are like, I'm just burned out.
Yeah.
I'm drained. I don't want to listen to this music anymore.
Yeah.
Well, some of the most downloaded hit songs in the world are really, really long, but they change their cadence. And, we were talking about some examples of those.
Bohemian Rhapsody, which is like weird. It's a weird song, right?
Yeah.
The point is, there's very few, unless it's Grateful Dead, but if you're listening to that, you're probably high. And that's why you don't mind that it keeps repeating because your brain is repeating it. But you want variety if something's going to be happening for a long time. Yeah. Justin, you ever thought on that?
Yeah, it's just on that note, there's two aspects, right? Like a lot of things we've been talking about at this point is a pretty practice internally. But if your clients aren't tuned in, like we're talking about the strategy sessions, and then some of the other tools that we use in terms of the email follow-ups and the monthly strategy summaries that we send out. Like you remember back in old days when on the radio, you didn't have like any of the current pre-settings and everything else. You had the little tuner. You had to tune in on your car radio, right? Like to try and find it. If you weren't tuned in just right, like it wasn't clear. It was broken up. Like there was no music coming through there. These are really the things for us that help on that and the pretty side with the client facing aspect of like, are they tuned in as well? Because you can do everything right internally, but you sound pretty terrible outside.
Yeah. And if it's off just a little bit, I'm thinking of this because I'm going to a race soon and I actually I have an FM radio I use for 4 hours a year and it's to listen to this race. Right. And because you can't hear anything at the race, it's too loud to like know who's in first and second or whatever. Right. But if you're off by just a little, it's so annoying. It's like, I just want it to be clear. Right. And so, yeah, you gotta have clarity in that and you gotta know everybody's gotta be on the same page. So Wes, wrap us up here, land the plane for us in regards to this idea of what it takes to really make sure that everyone's on the same page. Like if people are like resonating, they're like, man, we're not on the same page. Just give them some quick advice on like, what do they need to do to get everybody on the same page?
Yeah. Well, I would say just going back through these, you need seasons in your practice for sure. Yeah. Otherwise it's always winter and never Christmas, right? It's like, this is just monotony. It's the same thing. People don't necessarily burn out because of that. They burn out because there's no flow. There's no rhythm. The Bohemian Rhapsody was a great example that you brought up. You listen to that song. The producers didn't want to produce it. because they're like, this is too long. Nobody listens to a song this long. One of the most popular songs ever recorded,
Sure.
because it flows. It has seasons. So create seasons. Again, go back in there, create your narratives checklist. Get that out of your head. You may be brilliant. You may be great at thinking on your feet. You'll be more brilliant. You'll be better at thinking on your feet if you create a narratives checklist. And man, just include a headline meeting so you're not blowing each other up with different songs throughout the day and interrupting what you're trying to play. So it's almost like the equivalent of somebody keeps popping off a solo in the middle of what you're trying to do, their own little music that relating to nothing that you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It reminds me of like the drummer just like going off and like, okay, dude, we get it. We get it. You're a good drummer. Right.
Right.
Let's move on to the next song.
Please stop. Yeah. No, so those are the things. These are simple, but I will tell you, they're game changers. They really are. We observe these in people's practices. When you apply them, I mean, it makes your life better, makes you better at life, makes your practice pretty.
Awesome. And folks, if you want to hear about more trainings that Wes has, please just check out our show notes, whatever your application is you're listening to this through an app or on our website. Just please check out the notes there and that'll have information so you can learn more about Wes's great teachings. Thanks for your time today, guys.